Hello and good morning, good afternoon and a very good evening to you. The good old people of Tube. Hope you're well today. We're feeling grand and always well in your world. Hello there everybody. Today everybody, we're going to be diving into the world of comparisonning again. We're going to be comparisonning. I'm going to coin that as a phrase from now on. So when you're making a comparison or something, it's comparisonning. Okay? So copyright. So Warner Bros. Keep your hands off. Anyway. Today, we are going to be comparisonning my white Fender here against my Tokai Gold Star sound. We're going to be basically comparing Fender to Tokai. I have done a video on this ages ago, but it wasn't really a very good idea. It wasn't very good. It wasn't recorded well. It was in the old hat days. It wasn't particularly great. So I thought it'd be really cool to dive in again. And actually, somebody left a comment on the channel actually giving me the idea for this. So thank you for giving me the idea for this. And I am kind of curious as well, because there has been kind of like a little long-standing kind of thing between Fender and Tokai, because Tokai makes such awesome Strat, Tele, Les Paul 335 copies, and SGs and all sorts of other things. Which one sounds better? Which one, which one has the sound that you want to hear? And is there much of a difference? So, like I say, the two guitars we're going to use today are my number one guitar, my white '60s reissue Mexican Strat, and the Tokai is my Gold Star sound. So, they're kind of, in all fairness, they're very similar spec in a way, because they've got rosewood fretboards, they got the vintage reissues, you know what I mean? And from what I've read, correct me if I'm wrong, people of the Tube, but from what I've read, I heard that Tokai were the first company that decided to do the whole reissue thing. Tokai were a company kind of like who thought, well, instead of kind of like coming up with something new, why don't we just kind of like get hold of a really good example of a 50s, we'll talk about Stratocasters, 50s Strat and a 60s Strat, and just basically kind of clone them, and basically kind of iron out any kind of issues we can find in the process. And that was where the springy sound came from, the Tokai springy sound, which was the first Tokai reissue. And I say Fender weren't doing reissues at that point. There wasn't a reissue thing. I think that's late 70s into early 80s, or it could be early 80s. I don't actually know. But they started out with the springy sound, which was there was a maple neck Strat, which was a copy of a 55, I think, and there was a rosewood Strat, which is a copy of a 64. And they made them for a few years until there was a copyright thing put on them, not by Fender though, by another company. I forget who it was, who had something called the springy sound, not the springy sound, sorry, the springy sound. So Tokai had to change the name from springy sound. They changed it to Gold Star sound in like '83, which is what this one is here. This is an '84 Gold Star, and that was kind of like where it stayed. There was also some other kind of models as well based on like the '70s Strats, but they're the kind of like two, and there's also the breezy sound Telecasters, which are amazing, and there's also kind of the love rock guitars and stuff like that. Tokai make awesome guitars. They really make awesome guitars, and so it has been kind of like a long running thing of like, which one is better. And in my opinion personally, they both have their own kind of merits, if you know what I mean. Like, you know what I mean? They're both awesome, but they both, I don't know. Again, that's why this video is today, because I don't know which one, which one sounds better. Or whatever really. I mean, I can tell you now, 100%, that the Gold Star is more historically accurate than my white Strat. My white Strat, even though it's a 60s reissue, is not vintage spec that much, not as much as the Gold Star. That Gold Star is a copy of a 64 Strat. That's basically what that is, and it's pretty much identical to a 64. It's got the laminate the laminate fretboard. It's not a slab board. It's a veneer fretboard, and it has the right vintage neck profile. It's got the right body feel. It's almost got the right kind of burst. You know what I mean? They start to lighten, and it's a lot more. Really, really, really dark rosewood on the fretboard as well. But that guitar is a lot more historically accurate than this one, because the neck on my white Strat is a lot thinner. It's not vintage spec at all. It's wider as well, not by a great deal, but from E to E, it's wider, and the neck is not as big as an original pre-CBS Fender. And also headstocks as well. The headstock on the Tokai is more dainty, like a real one, like an old Strat. Whereas the reissue, my white Strat here, is bigger and bulkier, and it's just got a bit more girth to it, I'd say. So that guitar is more historically accurate, and it's one of those guitars that, like, if you put a Fender logo on that thing, and you could probably pass it off as an old Strat if a good if it's one of those things where you have to look closely to go right, because it's got so many of the telltale signs of an old Fender. It's got the veneer fretboard, it's got the mother of pearl inlay dots, the way they're spaced to the 12th fret is correct. The headstock is the right kind of size. The tremolo system is a steel block tremolo, which I really think makes a difference to the sound. I reckon steel block tremolo Stratocasters sound different to zinc block. I really reckon they sound different. It's weird, but you've got all the right accoutrements on that guitar, and you do on this one as well, but not to the degree of that one. It's absolutely bizarre. So yeah, that's why we're here today, everybody. Just just to see which one sounds. Well, I'm curious to what sound what's the difference in sound between the two, because at the end of the day, no matter what happens, I would always pick my white Strat because this is my best mate. You know what I mean? This is my best friend. But I am going to be slightly biased as well and just go, right, well, if a Tokai sounds better to me, then Tokai sounds better to me. I can tell you now already that I obviously, because I've played this guitar for so many years, I prefer the feel of my white Strat to the Tokai, because the Tokai I haven't had as long, and I don't, I'm not as used to it as I am this guitar. So feel kind of for me is kind of out the question. I can't really give a biased opinion on that because I've played this guitar for so long. I've only had the Tokai for a couple of months, so. So I'm basically going to go on by kind of sound and kind of like that kind of thing, and like I say, always want to know what you people think as well. So in the comment section below after we've done the sound examples, let me know what you think. So yeah, without further ado, I'm just going to play it super clean today as well. I'm not going to have the golden plexi on, so I'll turn that off, and we're just going to be straight into the MG, like super clean, just to see, just there's a bit of a change really as well. A little bit of reverb, not to quote Mr. Agnesi, but because not all EQs are at noon. But we'll add a bit of reverb on there as well. But what we're going to do is we're going to do a little sound example of bridge, middle, and neck on each. So it'll be bridge on the Fender, bridge on the Tokai, middle on the Fender, middle on the Tokai. Yeah, you get the idea. So yeah, and I say because they're both kind of like rosewood neck 60s reissue Stratocasters with staggered pole piece vintage style pickups. I am curious if there's and they're probably around the same price bracket. I don't know, but anyway, I am curious to what this is going to sound like. It really made me kind of think, what is the difference sound wise? Like I say, feel wise, like I say, if you're after that proper vintage feel, the Tokai has this guitar beat absolutely down to a T. This guitar is so much like a 64 Strat I was lucky enough to play. It's scary. And the 64 Strat I played sticks in my memory because it was like one of those first like mint, one of those first kind of like not mint condition, but one of those first pre-CBS Strats where I was like, I get why people like these guitars. You know what I mean? It was one of those, and so the feel of that guitar and the way that guitar looked and felt sticks in my memory really clearly. And when I played that for the first time, when this came to me, I was like, good gravy, this feels exactly like a real 64. It's almost like, it's scary. It's one of those, it's like, this is scary, scarily close. Okay, so, like I say, both guitars are stock. The pickups in that are the Tokai pickups. The pickups in this are the Tex-Mex pickups, which are my favourite pickups of all time. And yeah, so sound example, nothing major. I'm just going to play some chord stuff and just see kind of where we go and try and be as accurate and as consistent with each kind of playing example as I can. So we're just going to go through the MG today. And also, by the way, we're going through the MG, we're going through the line out on the MG today, so there's no mics on the cab, so it's just the DI, so we're just DI'd straight into the camera today. So without further ado, that's enough waffling on, Dave. So yeah, let's play some sound examples. Like I say, after you've heard the sound examples, let me know which one you preferred and why in the comment section below. And then I'll give you like a little my kind of final thought as well. So without further ado, let's make some noise. Okie dokie. So I've just had to listen back to kind of the audio, and like I say, it's total DI today. There's no mics on the cab, so and it's just the MG's just set like perfectly clean, like really clean. Like I suppose perfectly clean is a relative term. That's like my perfect kind of clean tone. I say there's just a little bit of reverb on the amp. Reverb is on 4, so it's not a great deal, but just a little bit just to soften it. Anyway, so yeah, just had to listen back to the sound examples. I would say, to my ear, the Fender is fatter sounding. It's a bigger, more depthy sound, if that makes any sense. Tokai didn't sound rubbish by any stretch of imagination. They both sounded absolutely stunning. And, you know what I mean? It's like, it's one of those things where I was like, you know, it's the best of both worlds either way, really. They both sounded great, but for me there was a distinct difference in how big they sounded. Like my white Strat sounded bigger. It had more low end and depth to it. Oh, and also I should mention they both got gauge 10 strings on it. The pickups are the same height. Bridge, middle, neck, they're all the same height because I do that to all my Strats. I actually measure them all. Well, actually, I don't need to measure anymore. I can do it by eye because I've been doing it for so long. But all my Strats pickups are exactly the same height on all my guitars. So the pickups are the same height. They both got gauge 10 Diodarios on them. 250k pots. It's as close as I can kind of get. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to make it as fair as is humanly possible. So, like I say, the Tokai to me came across gorgeous, but there's a distinct kind of like thinness to this guitar. You know what I mean? It sounded thinner. The Fender, Mr. White there, he sounded fatter. He sounded bigger sounding. Oh, by the way, both strings on the guitars are very, 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 very worn in. They both kind of when you're not playing for an amp, they're very, they're very, very kind of like dead strings, which I like very much. I don't like new strings. I like them when they're really, really kind of like dull and warm, and that makes me happy. I hate new strings. As soon as strings are worn in, I'm a happy bunny because I don't change them until they break. When they break, I'll change them, but it's a very reluctant thing to do for me. I like to keep old strings that don't have much kind of spring in them. I just like that sound. It's always appealed to me. I never really liked the sound of new strings. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. We tangent, don't we? But like I say, yeah. Sound-wise, the Fender for me was just a bit fuller. They both sounded like Strats. You know what I mean? Like, they just sounded perfect. They both sounded perfect. It's the only word I could think of, actually. Perfect. They really did. But I did notice a distinct thinner tone with the Tokai. Again, I don't know. This is just my ears. Like I say, let me know what you heard, people of YouTube, in the comment section below. I really want to know what you thought. Which one did you prefer as well? I really want to know which one you preferred and why. So yeah, it was weird, but I did feel the Tokai was a little bit more cutting. It's probably why this guitar, well, in all fairness, they're both really awesome for recording, but the Tokai records really nicely. It's much in the same way as my Jaguar does up there. For some reason, the Jag, this is going to sound really strange, but the Jaguar is probably, that Squier Jaguar is probably my best recording guitar. It records so nicely, no matter what amp you put it through. For some reason, whenever it comes through, like when you're mixing and stuff and recording, the guitar just comes through so well. It comes across so nicely. It's bizarre, and the same thing goes with this Tokai. It sounds really nice when you're recording. It's got a real kind of like, well, like I say, it cuts. It's got a real cut to it. It's got a really kind of sit on the top of things kind of noise, and it's really, really cool. But like I say, they're both shrunk the same way. The actions are the same kind of height and stuff like that. So I'm trying to get as close as is humanly possible to kind of like getting this perfect, like, well, not perfect, but as close as I can, because we know perfection doesn't exist. So, but to me, the Tokai was a little bit thinner sounding. It's a little brighter, not by a great deal, but it was noticeable. Whereas my Fender was a bit of a fatter sound. You know what I mean? It just sounded a bit more like low-endy and a bit more kind of like big, so to say. The Tokai was a bit smaller in comparison to it. I'm wondering if that might be something to do with the steel block, because steel blocks, I think, add brightness to a guitar, especially a Stratocaster. And I noticed this when I changed the tremolo on my 62 Strat to a vintage reissue trem. The tremolo I bought that guitar with was just like a Japanese Squier tremolo from the 80s, and it was just a zinc block. It wasn't a steel block. And when I changed it to an actual steel block vintage reissue tremolo, the guitar got brighter. It just had more zing. I think that's the word to use. It just had more of that kind of like more cutting kind of Strat tone. Whereas my white Strat here, it's got a zinc block. It's that composite kind of like I heard somebody call it monkey metal at one point. It's not really metal. It's kind of like that zinc kind of composite metal, and I'm wondering if it's something to do with that. I don't know. I might take a bit of diving into maybe at some point. Just try different tremolos and just see if they do sound different. But yeah, people of Tube, let me know which one you thought, which one you preferred, and why, and which if you were given a choice between the two, which one would you have? You know, and why is that? I've got to say the Tokai has the vintage feel perfect. It beats the Fender it beats my white Strat on vintage feel hands down. This thing feels like an old Strat. It's unreal. It's unreal how close this guitar is to a vintage Strat. The neck E to E is the right. I've actually measured this against the 60. I've actually got like measurements out, and this guitar is perfect spec to the 62. So it's a perfect 60s spec. Even though Tokai said they weren't, they are. You know, body thickness as well. They're a bit thicker than my. The body is a bit thicker on this one. It's a bit wider this way than the white Fender, because the 62 is a lot bigger as well. They're quite fat. Like the contours are correct. It's scarily close. This guitar is very scarily close to an original 60s, pre-CBS Stratocaster. It's really creepy. And you've got the veneer board as well. I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but you can see the veneer fretboard in there. Which is really, really cool. And it's really nice. And they say you've got the truss rod adjustment down there. You've got these Clouson style machine heads, but just say deluxe on them. The neck is just exact. It's scary. Like so I'll say, if you're after that kind of like proper vintage feel, this Tokai is kind of like the springy sound, the Gold Star, are kind of like the way to go. These old Gold Stars, they're so close to a real old Strat. It's creepy. Whereas my Mr. White here isn't really. I mean, the neck and the width of the E to E is not totally different, but it's not vintage spec at all. It's got a lot of vintage kind of features. My white Strat has, definitely being a 60s reissue, but it's not 100%. Whereas this is literally like 90-95% bob on. It's creepy. I've had like tape measures out and rulers out and measuring things, and it's like it just matches up so well with the 62. It's scary. So if you have to kind of like that proper vintage kind of like Strat feel if you want it, the Gold Star has that. Has definitely one up over the Fender. Is there anything else to say? I don't think there is. Also, the fretboard on this thing is so gorgeously. It's just gorgeous. The fretboard, it's such dark rosewood. It's just gorgeous, and it looks. Again, old Stratocasters have a really, really dark fretboard. My white Strat kind of does, because I've played it so much. There's so much kind of like finger dirt and gunk on that fretboard now. It's very, very dark as well, but it's not as dark as this, and it's not as dark as they are originally. They're almost like ebony. It's really, really weird. But yeah, and this guitar is just feels like heavenly. It really is gorgeous, this guitar. But but yeah, so that's what I hear. Like I say, I think the Tokai has a thinner sound. I don't know if it's to do with the steel block tremolo, real steel block. You can always test them by getting a magnet to them. Always keep a magnet close, because if a magnet sticks to it, it's steel. If a magnet doesn't stick to it, it's not. Let me show you quick. So you saw the magnet stick to that. Now if I put the magnet to this one, there's nothing there. It'll attach itself to the springs, but it won't attach itself to the actual block, so to say. So, people of the tube. So let me know which one you preferred and why, and and which one out of the two would you have? Like, would it be the Tokai, or would it be would it be I think I called the classic player. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just waffling now. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. I hope this video has been informative. I've been curious about this for a while, actually, kind of like doing a comparison video, but it was thanks to the person that left a comment the other day, kind of jogged my memory. I was like, yes, that's a really cool idea. I'm really curious. I need to know, you know, what's the difference between the two. So, so yeah, anyway, so yeah, hope you enjoyed this video, everybody. I hope it's been kind of like informative. Like I say, let me know which one you preferred and why in the comment section below. And I will see you again on Wednesday for a Q&A. And yeah, have a great morning, afternoon, good evening. Goodbye now. Thank you very much for watching.